Hello, this is Aaron Mean of SG Gaming Info, and welcome to a new episode of Let's Talk. In today's episode of Let's Talk, I'm going to talk about Fallout 4's bugs and issues. Now, the reason why I thought this was worthy of a Let's Talk episode was when I was doing my review of Fallout 4, which was just before this video came up, I noticed a lot of bugs and issues, and I had mentioned them in the review, as they're both written and the video formats. And what I had to say in both those forms of reviews wasn't actually everything I had my opinion on the bugs and issues with the game. To give an example, what I do when I'm doing a review is I take notes. So every time I notice something that's interesting or odd or wrong, off-putting I suppose is a more correct example to say, I take a note of it, I write it down. And Fallout 4 was very odd in the way that it was about half a page worth of the review notes was dedicated to bugs and issues with the game, which to me is very odd. That's not something I see myself doing too often. And I remember looking through the bugs and issues that I had when I was playing just before the review started, and something popped in my head, and it's not something as a reviewer I really want to pop into my head, and that is, oh, I don't feel like I'm reviewing this game. I feel like I'm doing a quality assurance test of the game before release. That shouldn't be going through my head. I shouldn't be thinking I'm doing a QA. I should be thinking I'm reviewing a finished product and not looking at a game that could be released down the line. With that in mind, I actually want to list off all the bugs and issues I encountered. Now, I mentioned some of them in review, others I didn't. So of course there was the noticeable frame rate drops in heavy combat. A lot of people are actually commenting on this. Basically when you go into combat, like looking at aim down sights and all that, you do notice a dip in the frame rate. Even actually just walking around, if you go to a new area that's beginning to load up, you notice the frame rate begin to tank, stutter, and cause massive amounts of eye strain. Like currently, since the start of the year, I've been wearing glasses for when I'm on the computer and playing video games, and it generally hurt my eyes, which is quite interesting. That's not something that's really happened to me since I started wearing my glasses. Okay, then another issue was during conversations there are long pauses that make me think the game has crashed. Okay, if you noticed, sorry, just before you notice, I'm actually just reading them off the list and not going off the top of my head. This was weird because there was conversations going ahead, and then suddenly the NPC I was talking to would just stop and look at me, and my first thought was, oh, game's crashed again. Sorry, the game's crashed, not again. It only actually ever crashed once in the entire playthrough, and I think was just before I was finishing up the review. But back to about the long pauses. Basically, there'll be long pauses like, oh, did the game suddenly have a crash or something? Turns out no, the game apparently likes to do long pauses. This also happens when you're on elevators. I remember there was one that was taking 30 to 45 seconds, I think, nearly a minute. It's like, oh, has the game crashed? No, it was just taking so long to load the next area. Of course, then we have NPCs clipping and teleporting through objects. Now, it wasn't as bad as I've seen the likes of Assassin's Creed Unity, where I literally saw NPCs floating through the air. This was basically like some plants or objects would be partly true, and some NPCs, like if they're off their scripted walking, they would teleport back to it, or they would just continue phasing through. It wasn't so much a major issue for me as it was very immersion breaking, and that's why I had it logged as an issue, I believe. And of course, the major issue I had with NPCs, this again I think was the scripting issues. NPCs have the habit of blocking doors, so when you're trying to exit something, they stand right in front of you, so you literally had to constantly push against them or try to jump over them to get through this gap, this door, this entry or exit point to basically leave or enter. It was kind of ridiculous. And there was also the issues with elevators. There's quite a few indoor sections that have elevators, and you would think they would come to you when you enter the elevator, but sometimes they don't. You have to manually command them to enter, and then sometimes if they're not entered this out of nowhere, they will just appear in the elevator. It was quite odd. Okay, so now I did mention this in the review heavily. I think I actually showed the video of it as well. which involved I was under attack by a bunch of ghouls after exiting a room, and basically the attack was taking place and then suddenly the game froze and I was teleported up into the air so high I couldn't see the ground textures. I could see the skybox, no problem. What I actually thought had happened, everything was basically deleted the textures, but it wouldn't have made sense because the buildings, I would have seen the buildings around me. So I came to the conclusion I was teleported in the air, and then the game froze, decided, hey, let's wait for a long time to load, and then after that I was just splattered down to the earth in a completely different area of the map. That only ever happened once, and it was very peculiar. I don't know how that happened. Of course, there's also more dialogue issues with the camera tracking of a dialogue. Sometimes the way the camera for dialogues work is it will either focus on you or the NPC you're talking to. Sometimes the camera would decide to pan at something else, like a dog might walk by, so it'll just like randomly focus on the dog for no apparent reason, even during important dialogue scenes. There was also issues with opening doors. Now, this was really odd. So usually what happens when they go into a door is your NPC companion will go through first and then you can follow. But to do on the PlayStation 4, you press X to open the door and you would just kind of phase through it. On occasions I would press X and absolutely nothing would happen. It would register the trigger, I pressed it, but it wouldn't let me go through to the next area. So what I'd have to keep doing is back away and then back towards the door to press the X to go through. It was very odd to say the least, and as you can hear from what I said about it earlier, I felt like a QA testing. This is what it really felt like to me, as you can tell from how I'm explaining all these bugs. I think this is probably the last issue I had logged, was getting stuck in terrain. It's not really a bug or an issue, I think it's more a personal issue for me. That field of view you have is very narrow, so you can literally just walk into a tree without noticing, and that's very odd to say the least. Everything's so really cluttered in that wasteland map, in the wasteland. I think that was major the issues I had with the game. Since I'm bringing up the bugs and issues, I always like to think to myself, having these notes here for this video, should Fallout 4 have been delayed to fix these bugs and issues? This is a big one for me. I personally think the game should have been delayed after playing the game with all these bugs and issues. Give it more QA time. I think what happened with Fallout 4 is they wanted it out before Christmas. After they announced it, so everyone was really hyped for it. So after they gave the release day announcement at E3 for November, they didn't want to delay it. I think, because like, oh, Fallout 4, everyone's really hyped for it. So I feel if it was delayed further, they would have damaged Bethesda in some way. Maybe confidence and all that. I think Bethesda felt they could get away with it because, one, Fallout is a very popular franchise, and two, unfortunately, everyone kind of expects Bethesda to release a buggy game. So when they release a buggy game, they basically kind of get a free pass with it. And actually that brings up one final point for this Let's Talk. How did a lot of reviewers, apart from myself, react to the game? And what mentions did they have of the bugs and the issues? And I took a selection of reviews that I saw, some giving it the high scores and some giving it to medium to high scores, around the same areas I gave it. And this was a random selection from n4g.com, which have a collection of all the reviews. And the first one I'm going to go to is GameIndustry.com, which just gave a passing mention of the issues and bugs while going to reward the game a 5 out of 5. And basically this is what the main thing they had to say about bugs and issues. I quote from the written review saying, "There's not a whole lot in the way of glitches to be found, and those that I've come across haven't been game breaking. Most will even go unnoticed. I will say that I hit frame rate issues in the game on a few occasions." Next up is Examiner.com, which gave the game 5 out of 5, as well as like GameIndustry.com, and they gave no mention of bugs or issues, which was quite odd. Next up is Destructoid, which ended up giving the game 7.5. And they did delve into the issues. They actually dedicated 2 paragraphs to the bugs and issues. What they had to say was basically, at this point you are probably aware of Bethesda's history with shipping buggy open world games by now. If you were hoping that somehow a generational leap would magically buck that trend, prepare to be disappointed. Nearly every classic glitch is accounted for, including the occasional save data issues, repeating dialogue, frame rate skipping, severe frame rate drops, pop-in, falling through floors, and so on. The review went on to say, for those of you who are used to this with the past work, it's par for the course. For everyone else who doesn't put up with it, nothing has changed. It should also be noted that while visual issues were persistent in the Xbox One edition, which the Destructoid reviewed the game on, I only ran into full-on game crashing twice during my travels. Even how glitchy it is, I can only speculate as to whether or not there will be any game-breaking bugs that completely halt progress, but it seems very likely. Okay, I kind of did sum up my words there, so on the screen you'll actually see the written format of it. Giant Bomb did give a lot of mention to it. A lot of review was dedicated to the bugs and issues, which saw them give the console version 3 out of 5. I believe they gave the PC version 4 out of 5. Now for this, I actually won't read through it. It's all on the screen there. But a lot of it was dedicated to how the physics were going wild, and performance issues will actually have a myriad of animated GIFs and such dedicated to it, which I believe kind of turned out to be true in a lot of ways. And they did mention a lot of the AI character issues that I mentioned earlier on in this Let's Talk. Very in-depth view Giant Bomb did, and in the description of this video I will have links to all the reviews that I'm quoting or mentioning. Next was The Guardian, who really did kind of punch into it, kind of like Giant Bomb. Like, they gave it 3 out of 5 as well, and they were talking about how, I think the best way to put it was in the review's subheader. It was stated, Bethesda has a reputation of 2 things: stunning realized worlds and frustrating technical issues. And then lower down they had another subheading titled with the big bug hunt, and I believe I should be putting up what the review highlighted with the bugs and issues. Like, they're talking about how, like, using a sniper rifle in the area around Diamond City saw the frame rate reduced to poor levels, I suppose. And then one of the issues, there was unpleasant dragging that over time irritating because of eye strain. Now, I actually mentioned that earlier on in this video as well, and that's just a selection of what they had said, like including NPC allies against looking well, etc. Now, the last review one I want to talk about is from IGN, and well, IGN gave the game 9.5 out of 10, and they did mark that one of the big game's major negative was bugs. And basically, they're basically saying, I actually read out what they had written down, it's very small piece. On all platforms, we saw occasional crashes. The autosave system prevented any major loss of progress, and every so often we hit a side quest that won't properly begin or end due to scripting bugs, which is odd. They mentioned that and gave it 9 out of 10. But that's 9.5 out of 10. You can see there was very much conflict between a lot of reviewers, some giving the bugs and issues a passing over because Bethesda are known for making buggy games, but overall the games are great. And that brings a lot of points, like should bugs and issues be marked down more? I know when I did my review I actually had marked an entire point off the game. I believe the game would have been a 9 out of 10 if the bugs and issues that I mentioned in the review and at the start of this video weren't present. So it's very interesting. Also, will these bugs and issues be fixed later on down the line? Will there be free update patches to fix them? Because as we know, there's a season pass, there's going to be expansion packs. So will Bethesda wait until these expansion packs are coming out to then fix these bugs and issues? It would be interesting to see what Bethesda do down the road with Fallout 4. But this is really all I have to say on this Let's Talk. I will bring the conclusion really to the most part that, like I said in review, if you're not a fan of bugs and issues, avoid Fallout 4 until these bugs and issues are fixed. If you're playing Fallout 4 at the moment and you haven't come across the bugs and issues I mentioned and that reviewers have mentioned, then you are incredibly lucky, and congratulations, and I hope you enjoy the game. For myself, since I finished the review, I haven't touched Fallout 4 because I haven't been a fan of all the bugs and issues. And again, the frame rate dips and tearing is causing me to have some eye strain, so I won't play it. And I'd say thank you for watching, and please like, favorite and subscribe to this YouTube channel, and be sure to visit sggaminginfo.com, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/sggaminginfo, and please follow us on Twitter at sggaminginfo. Thank you for watching.